Today, we are going to cover a topic that I see a lot of questions about online, and that is, am I stuck with my application where I built it? Let's say you built it in a Replit or Bolt or something like that. Is it stuck there, or is it mine? Can I move it somewhere else? And the short answer is it's yours. You can move it somewhere else. It can be a little tricky if you haven't done it before. So we're going to go through the process of how to move an existing application and just show you how that's done. Make it nice and easy. That way you can just follow the same process when it comes time to move your apps around. And this is a universal process. You can use it on almost any platform. I won't say every platform because a few of them seem to have a few extra wrinkles. I'm hearing that as it base 44 can throw some nice wrenches in between your app and moving it, which I need to do some testing on that and see what the process is and do a class on that too, but haven't got to that one yet. Anyway, for most platforms, this is the process you'll follow. So our tools today are going to be Railway for our hosting. This is where we're going to move it to. I highly recommend Railway. They have really good pricing. It's very easy to use. You can deploy almost anything there. Pretty much anything that Replit would build or Bolt would build or Lovable would build can be deployed right here on Railway, nice and easily. And you'll see the process. It's not that difficult. The app we are moving today is one I'm working on that turns your math homework into fun games. This little application, just started it, so it's not really tested out that much, but it has all the features that we would want to move over. It has a database. It has a very simple form of auth where it can find the user in the database and find the quizzes that they've made. It has all of the pieces that you would expect to need to move rather than just moving a website. And we are going to migrate that from Replit to Railway via GitHub. This isn't a building lesson. This is a, what do I do with it? I built it. How do I move it? That's what we have here. So to start with, we're going to go here and pull up GitHub. We click the little plus. We look for Git. And this is what it'll look like if you haven't connected your app to GitHub. I recommend that you connect your app to GitHub very soon. So this demo, I started it for this example here 32 minutes ago. So we could use this application. So we're connecting this right away. And what we're going to do is make sure our GitHub is connected right here. If it's not, it'll have you do that step first. And then we are going to name this Math Quizzer, and we are going to create that. There we are. So now we have our Math Quizzer here connected up. And we'll go back over to the GitHub. We click the little back arrow there, and that takes us to this little pop-up. This should show up every time you do that first connection, and you'll tell it to confirm for this session. And then we're going to push this branch. There we go. So now it is pushed here to GitHub. What we're going to do now, we have this synced up. Now in GitHub, let's actually just go over there. We will go to this repo. You have this branch right here. Now, what you'll see Replit or Bolt or Lovable or many of these things do, when you connect it to GitHub, it will push all of its changes to your main branch. Now in Replit, you can change branches if you have multiple branches and push to a different branch. A lot of the other platforms just push to main and don't let you change it. The issue there is if you go and make a bunch of changes and you want to test them on your new platform where you're hosting it, you are testing them on the live site. It's pushing them out to main. It's being tested on main because that's what we're going to link up with Railway. So what I'm going to show you is how to create a separate branch and pull this down to allow us to have a staging branch, not just a production branch. So we can actually test on our deployed environment without testing on the live site that users might be interacting with. So this is just a better development process that you can do if you are deploying outside of something like Replit. Now that we have this up here in GitHub, You have the files. Your database does not push over here. It doesn't come with it. We have to do that separately. And we have to make sure all of our environment variables, our secrets, they're called secrets here in Replit. We have to make sure that all of our secrets are pulled over, although we may not need the database ones here, or only need them temporarily. Let's go ahead and start with a database that we can use here. Right now, this app consists of its file system, and it has its database as well. So those are the kind of the two elements of this application. And we want to have both of those hosted over on Railway. So we're going to deploy a new project here on Railway, and we are going to tell it a database. We want a Postgres database here because that is what we are moving from. You can look at the, where is it? Right here, I think. Yeah. So it's a Postgres database in this one. That's going to be what most of them are. We're going to create a database. This is a blank database. This has nothing in it. And I will show you how to move everything over, because if we look at this database here, we have 4 tables. We have quizzes. I made a quiz. So there's a quiz inside the table here. There is a set of questions for that quiz. There's a log of attempts made on the quiz, which I didn't go through the thing, so it doesn't have any attempts. And then there's users, which would be me doing a quiz test. All right. We have to move all of that information over, and it's very easy to do. I will show you how to do that as well. We have a database here. It looks like it is being created. While that's being created, we are going to pull this app down to our local machine so we can prepare it to be deployed. There's a few things we want to prepare it with. Before that, I am going to use GitHub Desktop. And GitHub Desktop looks like this. You can get it here. Just look it up, click the download, and download whatever version works for your computer. It will try to identify what type of computer you have. That's why it shows this for me. You can get whatever version you need there, and it is free. You download the GitHub for Desktop app, and then it will have you log into your GitHub account. I'm already logged in, but it'll pop up and have you log into that account. Once you have logged in, you will be able to click this little button to add a repository. So I am going to clear this here and click the add. So there's a little add icon. I'm just moving this over so that some other repos don't show. There's a little add icon. We're going to clone a repository because we already have it. And we might need to refresh this. And there's the math quizzer that we just added. I'm going to grab that and clone that to the computer. And we will go ahead and fetch that. Now we have the main branch on our computer. And we're going to prepare the main branch to be published, and then we will make a copy of it, and I'll show you how we can do edits and test those out. Now that we have this here, I am going to use kilocode for this preparation. You can use Cursor. You could use, let me just pull up a few that you could use. You could use Cursor. That's a very popular one. You could use Windsurf. It's another very popular tool. I've used it a lot. There's one from Amazon. Is it called Kiro, I think? This one's pretty good, although it looks like they're in waitlist mode now. Maybe they've maxed out their usage. It's a pretty cool tool. It's new. I find it to be a little buggy, but it has some really nice features that they're working on. You could use Claude if you like the command line. Use Claude Code. And that's here. If you want command line work, you can do that. That works like that. What I'm going to use, though, is kilocode. This is one of my favorites. It is open source, and it works right inside Visual Studio Code or VS Code right here, which you can download. You would download Visual Studio Code, and then you would install kilocode in there. And that is going to give us this combination right here. And we will go ahead and open a file or a folder. So we're going to open a folder with that new repo that we want to open up here. And it's going to be right there at the top, and we will open it. Now we have those files pulled down from GitHub right here to our computer. And we can see all of those files here. The first thing that I tend to do is right click and do a new file and make my .env. And this is where we are going to put all of the secrets that we need so that we can run it locally and prepare this to be published on different hosts. I see a comment there from you, Tony. Seems crazy why anyone wouldn't connect every project to GitHub. I talk to people every day who haven't connected their projects to GitHub. It's just a thing. It's unfortunately not common knowledge in this user base, but that's why we do these classes. All right, we have our secrets here. Now what we're going to do is in Replit here, we're just going to click edit as .env, and we are going to pull that over to our computer. So we're going to do that and copy it and just cancel out of that window. And we're going to put that into our .env file with a paste, save it, and close that out. Now you'll see here that this .env is getting ready to be committed to GitHub. And we don't want that because it has potentially sensitive information in it, like API keys, database credentials, things like that. We don't want that to be the case. We don't want that to go to GitHub. Because if we were to share this app with someone, then they would have access to all those keys. So what you do is you go over to your gitignore right here. We're going to click on that, just add a new line and put in .env and save that. Now you'll see this will change color from green to a light gray. And it is now removed from our list here of things that would be committed to GitHub. And now it's been updated with just this gitignore file. That's how we keep that from going out to GitHub, from being pushed out. This is a private repo, so it's unlikely that it would be ever found, but this is just additional security to make sure that your secrets stay on your machine. Now that we have that there, we can just leave this sitting for a second. We don't have to commit that change yet. We're going to go over here. Now, on my computer, I have to often change Replit default ports just because of some other applications that I have running that use the same ports as what Replit sets as default. Generally, Replit builds every app with 5,000 as the port, unless you're doing something like a Flask application. I just do a quick search. I don't have AI do this. You could ask AI to do this, but it's very easy. If you know you need to change ports, just click this and search for the port that you expect it to be starting on and change it to something else. For this one, we are going to change it to 5023. It really doesn't matter here. Just as long as it's something that's not being used, and I know that that port is not currently being used. And we will change this. And we will change this. Now, when you see it in a comment like this, change it there too, because the AI will read that comment and go try to change it back for you later. So just change it in the comment. There we are. Okay, we have our port changed. And that's ready now. We're going to go over to the AI, and I'm going to use Claude Code inside Kilo Code. If you have Claude Code and you have a subscription to Claude Code, you can go over to Kilo Code and connect it. Then you can use your Claude Code subscription right inside here. I see some comments popping through. Let's see what we have here. Mo, as someone who has zero coding knowledge, this all seems complicated, although I am learning, and websites like Lovable and Replit advertise to individuals like me who have no idea what we're doing. That is very common to the demo. You are not alone in that feeling, in that perception. It definitely has that, hey, anybody can build something. And it's not wrong. Anybody can build something, but you will hit a point where your build will start to go less than optimally if you don't expand some of your knowledge set to accommodate the new things that you're building and the new pieces of equipment that you're working with. And that is exactly why I hold these sessions, is to give you exposure to these things that can help you build better and faster. And these are recorded and put on YouTube. So it might be a lot to take in as I'm doing it right now, but you can go back and watch them and pause and follow the steps. And before you know it, you're going to be a lot more knowledgeable about what you're trying to do. It's going to be pretty cool. And Tony, yeah, you were back there not too long ago, but you've been showing up on these for quite some time now. And it sounds like it's really working out for you. You're now building apps for people and it's paying off. That's the idea. Mo, if it's a little overwhelming right at this moment, don't let that put you off. Just soak it in. Go back and rewatch the videos on YouTube. You'll take away little nuggets. You'll find that over time, it just becomes easier and easier to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. All right. So we have Claude Code connected here, and we are going to turn this into ask mode. We're still going to use the do not make changes, just to be sure, because I have mine set up currently so that it can switch modes from ask to other. You can turn that off here if you want to. You can turn that off. I find that because I prompt it very specifically, it's not a problem. But if you're not doing super specific prompts, then you may want to turn that feature off. We'll say, do not make changes. Look at this app and tell me what is needed to prepare it to use a Dockerfile to deploy on Railway. I find that the Dockerfile is the most consistent method for deploying on Railway. They have a few different methods you can use, but without going into details on each of them, just take note. Dockerfile seems to work the best. It's the most consistent. It works for pretty much every application that I've ever deployed there, which is at this point probably over 70 applications on Railway. It's very consistent. Just do that. Now I'm going to use an MCP server to give it additional context. We are going to say up here, Dockerfile, Railway. And here is a guide that Railway has to build from a Dockerfile. And I want the AI to know that information. So we're going to say, use the Doc Finder MCP to review the Railway documentation on this. Right here. Now this Doc Finder MCP is a piece of beta software that I wrote. It's not fully production ready. I will have it production ready shortly. What it does is it goes and reads these and translates these documents into a form that AI can easily understand. And we're just going to end this with do not make changes. There's one other thing. We're going to use another MCP. Here, the Smart Code MCP as well. This is going to help the application, help the AI understand the application faster, and you'll see how that works. And I will be also releasing the newest version of the Smart Code MCP shortly. New version is underway. Tony, your question is, you say put every app inside Docker before deploying to Railway. I don't actually package them up in Docker. I just use a Docker file to give it the instructions for how Railway should run it. We're not actually going to run it in Docker locally. Railway can read several different types of instruction files for launching an application. There's a few different types they can use. They have the Nix packs. They can try to just identify it directly from GitHub. When you pull that in, they'll try to just read the files and identify there. But for the most part, you need to give it a set of instructions for how to start the application. And Dockerfile is just a nice, clean way to do that. Right here, it's going to use the smart code MCP, and it's going to quickly understand the structure of this application. So it gets that information really quick. And then here, it's going to dig in just a little bit more into how the project is organized, what the file system looks like, different architecture patterns. And that's what this tool does, is it identifies those really quickly for the AI. And it's going to read our dependencies here for this application. And now it is looking at that document I gave. And so it translates that website into a nice markdown for the AI to read, nice clean text with no strange formatting. And it also tells it other links that it may want to read to fill in its information gaps. So it's going to read some other links here about deploying and get the instructions there as well. So now the AI knows how to deploy on Railway. It is explaining what we need to do here for this build. We won't go over this in detail. We're just going to let the AI do this for us, which is how most people that are doing this kind of vibe coding would do it. You don't have to go through here and necessarily understand every piece right out of the gate. All right, and this is telling us what environment variables we will need in Railway. We just put our env file here. We're going to have to move some of that over as well. And here we are. Looks good. It's telling us Railway has ephemeral file systems. That's fine. I don't need to keep the files right now. Okay, because it's noticing that because this has uploads right here, where we can upload the homework for analysis to generate a quiz, but we don't need to keep those photos, so I'm not worried about them being ephemeral. Okay. So now we're going to tell it this. We're going to change this over to code mode. Would like you to prepare the Docker file. I will provide Railway with the proper variables, and we'll say ephemeral file storage is fine because we aren't keeping the uploaded files. We say do not make other changes. Okay. Let's also tell it this. I will manually move the database information from the current one into Railway. You don't have to do that. There we go. Because I'm going to show you how to easily move the database. And while this is being prepared, we're actually going to do that step. So what we have, I have too many windows open here. Let's close some of these. Here we are. We have a database here that is empty. We just made that on Railway. We have a database here that has all our information in it. And we want all of this to be here. Let me show you how we're going to do that. What we're going to use is a very simple process to just overwrite this database with this one. Now, you would not want to do this if this database had anything in it at all. There are more methods you can use, but when we're doing a migration like this, and for the purpose of taking a site off of Replit and putting it somewhere else, it is fine to do this overwrite. We are going to use this command. All this command is going to do is export everything from one database that I give it, and it's going to import everything it just exported into another database. That's all it's going to do. It's just going to pull it from one and put it into another. What we put in here are the two database URLs. The first database is this one. We need the database URL. So we're going to copy that and we're going to put that in here. This is our source database. We're going to go over here and grab the public URL of the railway database. And we're going to put that here for our destination. Just paste that in. Okay, so now we have our command. Now, this will vary slightly on Windows, but we are going to use terminal. You would use command prompt. Tony, yes, it is the same prompt to use in Bolt's Lovable because those are using Supabase. You have to get your database URL for the Supabase database, and then that's what you put in. Now, something to keep in mind, if you are using Bolt and Lovable and you want to keep using Supabase because maybe you've integrated Supabase auth or something like that, you can simply provide the Supabase database URL to your application and not deploy one here inside Railway. So you can have this application use the Supabase because that's an outside service. I'm moving both over here because this database and the file system that's been built are inside Railway. They're kind of packaged inside Railway. Bolt and Lovable use Supabase. It's an outside service. So you can continue to use that and just provide that as your database URL to the application. And I'll show you where that database URL goes. If you don't want to migrate, you want to keep using Supabase, you can use that and just host the application on Railway. But the command is the same. We are going to copy that command we just constructed, and we are going to send that here. And it's going to copy everything over for us. There we go. And let's see if we got everything moved over. And there it is. We have all our questions. We have an empty quiz attempts table, which we looked at earlier, is empty. We have quizzes. There's a 1, and there should be 2 users. Yep, there are 2 users. That's how easy it is to move everything over. It does not have to be more complicated than that. It's that simple. I see your question. Do you normally use Supabase as preferred database, or does it depend on the project? Good question. Most of the time, I would say 75% of the time, I'll just use the database here in Railway because it's all on the same platform, and I can have, there is actually an MCP to connect to Railway here, and the AI can see both the database and the configuration between the whole application in one picture. It makes it a little easier for debugging in some cases. The other 25% of the time I use Supabase because it has excellent security features. So if I'm doing something that might be medical or education, or just need more security out of the box, then Supabase is really good for that versus having to write some of that manually for this database setup here. We could do the same thing like this command we just did. We could set up a new Supabase project, move everything over there, and use that database instead. It wouldn't take that much more time if we wanted to do that. Right now, we will just use the native platform here. Let's move the rest of these off our screen so we're cleaned up again. And let's see what it has done for us here. It created the Dockerfile. And here we are. Let's take a quick look at our Dockerfile that it made for us here. Before we go and do anything with this at all, we are going to see if we can run it on Railway. We are going to simply say, we're going to put in a commit message, run on Railway, prepare to run on Railway. Doesn't matter what you call it here. We're going to commit that and sync those changes. All right, so now we have that change pushed to GitHub. We are going to go back to Railway, right-click. So we're just right-clicking above or around anywhere in our canvas here. This is kind of a canvas. I'm going to right-click and say GitHub repo. So we're going to go back over here, right-click, GitHub repo, and Math Quizzer. Let's do a refresh, make sure it's all pulled in. Still taking its time to load, isn't it? Sometimes it can take a moment to link through. One moment. Yep. Ah, yes, it is still linking on GitHub side. There we go. Let's refresh this one more time. It looks like it's completed. There it is. Math Quizzer. Okay. So now we have that here. We are going to set some variables. We have these variables here. The first one we want is our database URL. So we're going to copy that. Click on Math Quizzer. We're going to do a new variable. We'll paste that in. And it's going to be database URL underscore URL. And we will add that. There we go. There was an API key that we needed. So we'll go back over to our env. And we're going to, I left it in Replit. We'll have to copy that over. We might have to do something about these storage paths. We will see. Cross that bridge if we need it. We're going to go over to secrets, and we are going to copy our Gemini API key. Move that over here. Do a new variable, Gemini API key. We will copy the secret and paste that in. All right. And let's see what else we need. Those should be fine. That this is all just the assembly of the database URL. We need this one. You can make a new session secret if you want, but we will just copy that and paste it in. All right, and we will worry about these things if we need them. I don't think we do at the moment. We'll debug that if we need it. So then we will click deploy with these variables in place. And it's going to take that last commit that we did. We named it prepare to run on Railway. And it's going to pull that in here. While that's building, you'll see that it detected a Dockerfile, which is what we want. And it's doing this build. Now, these builds do not always load correctly the first time. Especially if we're doing this with AI completely like we are now, where we're not going through in detail. We're trusting the AI to set up the Dockerfile correctly. We may run into some issues, but I do it this way on these calls so that you can see how it would work just using the AI to do it without, Mo, to your point, letting the AI do most of the work for us without having a bunch of knowledge about the code. And that way you can see the type of errors you might run into and how to fix them. That's the point of doing it this way on these calls. It is currently doing a build. You can see here it's been building for a little bit over a minute. It says deployment in process. I haven't reached the deploy phase yet. It's still in build phase. Here we go. The deploy phase is starting. Let's see what the build log says. 79.63 seconds. We will see what our deployment log says here. And it has imports in the wrong order or not where we expect them. So we're going to click this little arrow here. Copy logs as plain text. The app crashed. Again, this is not a complete surprise. We are going to go back over here to the AI. We've completed this setup. We're going to do a new conversation. We're going to say, we just published this on Railway, and it got these errors. We're going to paste in what we just copied. We're going to say, do not make changes. Please tell me where that is coming from and how to fix it. We're going to send that on its way. And in case I did that too fast, to copy all of this error log, you click this little arrow right here, and you just copy the log. I like to do it as plain text, but you can copy it however you want. That way you can have this entire log file to give to the AI. Okay. We need to move Vite here to production dependencies. I believe that it just ignored my do not make changes and is editing the file. We're going to let it do its thing for a second here. I don't necessarily agree with the method that it's using. We'll let it do a build here. Okay. So I don't agree with the changes that it just made here, and it ignored my do not make changes, which I didn't change it to ask mode, but it's easy to go back. We are going to go to its first change right here, and we're going to restore our files back to there. And we are going to say, no, I have undone those changes. Instead, include Vite as a production dependency. This tends to work better for Replit apps. And again, this is just one of those things that show up on a call, you get to see this type of activity. I found that this tends to work better for this sort of application. It has changed this file for us here. Moved it. And let's test that change before we do anything else. Now, we're in the main branch. So when I sync this, this is going to give me that error again because I haven't logged in here. We're just going to use GitHub Desktop to push it forward. There we go. And because we just pushed that to main, Railway is going to listen for that. At least it generally does. It's initializing a new build. We will watch those logs and see if anything else pops up that we need to fix, or if we got the whole thing deployed here. While we're waiting for that to run, any questions here from anybody? I see, what is Vite? Well, in short, it's basically a toolkit that helps with assembling the different pieces of the application quickly. It has some features for build when you're doing changes on the application that it quickly reloads the app after you make a change, so it watches for those. It's basically a dev toolkit, but the way Replit builds these apps, they tend to depend on it. So unless you go through and start stripping out those dependencies manually, which can take a long time, it's fine to just have it as part of the deploy process inside wherever you're deploying it. So that's why I move it to production dependencies. Let's see. It says active. What else? Still missing something. We're missing something still. Is the entry point wrong? We'll copy it again and ask. Sometimes it can take 3 or 4 changes to get this to fully launch. Let's tell it, paste this in. We're going to go back, tell it do not make changes. We have deployed this app and we moved Vite to production dependencies and are getting these errors. Find out what is missing. There we go. You just take a look at how it did that file. You don't have to do this. You can just go the AI route here. So we have it in dependencies there. Let's see. Might need to add this environment in. Normally it's detected automatically. But while we're waiting for that to look, we're going to copy over this variable and put it in as well. Just make sure it knows it's in production. Okay, so it used the smart code MCP here to figure out the import locations. Let's take a look and see what it's finding. Let's have it move it to production dependencies here. We're going to go ahead and install those. It's given us a command here. We're going to go to terminal, new terminal. You could ask it to move those for you if you want. We're just going to use the command here. Make sure those are installed. There we go. You see it updated the file for us. We're going to add dependencies and commit this change. Send that to Railway and see if there's anything else. Sometimes you'll do this and it'll be like layers. So once you clear out a bunch of dependency issues, there will be something else that Replit built in or that Bolt built in that is a little buried, and you'll get a new set of errors. And it's the same process over and over until it's deployed. You just go in, you look at your deployment, you view the logs for that deployment, you copy the logs, you give it to the AI, and you go back and test the deployment again. It's just peeling back the layers of an onion on your application. Sometimes, like Tony, you mentioned earlier about a website. Is the process the same for a website? And generally with a site, it's much fewer dependencies. So this process tends to be much faster. You can often deploy a website in 1 or 2 changes. See what else we have here. It says it's deploying. Is there anything else we're missing? Generally, you can do a migration here in roughly an hour. That's pretty common. Of course, I'm doing little demos here, so it's a little slower. That is in dev dependencies. Is it not in? Yeah. Okay. Looks like we are still missing something here. Update our dependencies so that everything we need is now in production, not dev. You see a question there. When bringing a newly built app or site into Cursor Windsurf, we often use the prompt, review this application, tell me what is built, tested, what is stubbed out. It's this prompt here, folks. This one right here on the screen, review this application, tell me what is built and tested, what is stubbed out, what is not built at all, and what's entirely placeholder or fake. Do not make changes. Is there a prompt I would use if I wanted Cursor to check the entire code base for errors? I would not have it check the entire code base for errors. I would go through a module at a time and isolate the search to different modules or sections of the application. If you have it check the whole code base, you're going to run into issues with, did this change anything? Yeah. Okay, let's set that up. I want this to be publishing while I'm talking here. You're going to run into context issues. If you have it check the whole code base, it's just too much information. So limit it to certain types of checks. Something that you could do, there's a few different ways to do it, but one that works really well if you're not super familiar with app security is to go in and say, hey, go to like Gemini or ChatGPT or something like that and say, hey, I have this application. It's built with XYZ things, and I want to check it for security issues. Give me a list of 15 things to ask my developer to check to make sure this app is secure. And then go through each one of those questions with Cursor or Claude or whatever to check your app in different pieces in different ways. Break it down into small problems. And let's see if this last build is going to succeed or if we have to go a little further with our setup here. I just want to read this here. I want to check the last change that it made because I was talking while I read that. Build process. Let's see. View the logs on the new build. Says it's now deploying. And if it doesn't deploy here, okay, new error. Remember I mentioned that we might have to do something with these file locations? Looks to me like something in there doesn't have a fallback to the other locations. So we're going to have to fix that. You can sometimes find that you have to go through a series of errors, peeling back the layers. We are going to continue the process here, copy this, take it over to our AI, and we are going to tell it, do not make changes. we deployed this to Railway, and it gave these errors. I think they may have to do with the file storage. Okay, that was an incorrect assumption. It actually is the version of Node.js. We're going to stop it before it starts to make changes and actually see what it came up with here. Can't we just update the Node JS version? I think it's in our Dockerfile. I'm going to tell it that. Dockerfile. Which we can look over here and see. Here, I think. See what it finds. Okay. We will take those changes to the changelog and Dockerfile. See if there's anything else. Looks like the changelog. I was a little impatient there and missed the changelog change, but that's okay. We can push that out later. There's the new version. Now it is deploying here. Let's check our logs for any other errors. Container is started. Let's take a look and see if we can view this application now that that is in place. We're going to go over to settings. We're going to generate a domain. We're going to give it the port that we just saw, which is 8080. And we're going to see if this application is live. And there we are. It is now moved over to Railway. Went through the debugging process, and that is ready to start using there on Railway. You can either continue building on Replit after the changes we made. I wouldn't do that. I would continue building with KiloCode or Cursor or whatever you're using here for the deployment. As you can see, it's a similar environment. But that is how you move an application from Replit to an external host. If you want to use Railway, like I'm doing here, you're welcome to support these videos by using our Railway referral code. That link will be in the description of this video. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please like and follow. And if you need help building or finishing your app, click the link in my bio to book a one-on-one Zoom call to take a look at your project.